And now it's time for our panel of experts who can further identify what older Americans are looking for from their elected officials. Heather Booth is the former senior engagement director for the Biden-Harris campaign, and she's been organizing for civil rights and women's movements since the 1960s. I've had so many great conversations with her. I'm thrilled that she's back. She's even had a documentary film made about her work entitled Heather Booth, Changing the World. Jennifer Carroll made history when she became the first black Republican female elected to the Florida legislature. She's the former lieutenant governor of Florida and the national spokesperson for Maggie's List. And I got to tell you, Maggie's List made some major inroads this year. And finally, Nancy LeaMond, the executive vice president and chief advocacy and engagement officer of AARP. She is the author of the term I keep telling you, that the future of retirement is work. And she's an expert on the needs of older Americans and how our leaders can meet these needs. Welcome to all of you. Let me just start out with Heather for a moment. Heather, you were outreaching to the senior community. They turned out, I tell people everybody turned out, right, more in this election than they had previously. But what I found interesting is that the senior voter increased its share of the pie. They turned out in greater proportion to other parts. That's always been the case in terms of turning out more and being America's most reliable voter. But they came out even more strongly this time. As you were reaching out on behalf of the Biden-Harris campaign, what was on there? What did they want to see this town do to solve their needs?
And Steve, by the way, thanks to you and the Hill for hosting this. And Nancy LeaMond, thanks for educating so much of the population, as well as those over 50, about the concerns of senior citizens. And Jennifer, I congratulate you on the success of Maggie's List in this last election. And for seniors, life has really been hard on older Americans for the last several years. Over 235,000 people over 65 have died of COVID-19. We're concerned about our health and our future and our grandchildren and their future. And we face greater unemployment and economic insecurity. Often the first fired, the last rehired. And so those issues of our health care and how to deal with a pandemic, economic insecurity, unemployment, getting good wages and getting rehired, and then building the basis of a caring society. These, I think, were the prime concerns of senior citizens. And it's also the main pillars of the Biden campaign for Build Back Better. And I think it's one of the reasons that while seniors have been a Republican base for a number of years, why there was some shift, a modest shift, toward Biden as he talked about economic security, retirement security, building back better, and building a caring society.
Heather, just before I leave you and go to the others, Aquanetta Warren, powerful set of messages. The mayor of Fontana said that she was on a conference call, with the Conference of Mayors, meeting with President-elect Biden, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, and said, hey, I want you to really talk to all of us. I want you to talk to the small cities. I want you to talk, to these different communities. It was a, very powerful message because she sort of had her doubts they would. So I'd like to kind of hear where you are on that. And then I want to, jump to our friend from Maggie's List to sort of see if she's in line with that. So, Heather?
Well, I really I heard the end of that prior conversation and I appreciated it and think it's so true. I also think it's what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris believe, too. By the way, I was in the campaign. I'm not on the transition of the administration. So I speak just for myself and from what I know of the campaign was based on. But Joe Biden is the man from Scranton. It's not one of the big cities. He cares about people all over America and has talked about that repeatedly. The section of the campaign I was in was an engagement and outreach section. And one of the major aspects of the effort was that focused on rural and small town communities, as well as small businesses. We have to all do better, and we'll all do better only if we all do better.
Heather, is it your birthday today?
It is. These
happy birthday. I saw those balloons. I couldn't avoid it. Happy birthday from all.
I'm 70. I'm 75 years old today, so I'm part of the over 50 crowd. And I'm loving spending it talking about what the new administration and what we need done for the over 50 population.
Well, it's a quite great backdrop. Jennifer Carroll, Maggie's List. I was just speaking to Stephanie Bice, who's an incoming legislator from Oklahoma City area. She just won. Her first election is coming to Congress, so I think she's in your territory. But how do you look at the dashboard? Well, first you've really succeeded this time. There are more women coming in the GOP side than ever. But I'd love to hear how you're looking at the challenges right now, and particularly what do older Americans that voted in your terrain want to see from government?
First, I want to wish Heather a very happy birthday, and you are aging very well. I embrace my 61, and we're entering into a very great conversation because just the other day, my stylist commented that she was very afraid that the age will increase again. She's in her 60s, and she says, I want to collect my Social Security. I don't want to retire. I don't want to retire later than I have to, but I fear that age will increase, and then I'm not going to be around to enjoy what I've put into the system. That is a legitimate fear for people. When I turned 50, AARP was ready on the spot to send me a membership, which we joined, and we get very good benefits, my husband and I, from being members of an AARP. But additionally, folks my age are concerned about long-term care. That has to be factored into your retirement. They're worried if they're going to outlive their retirement, and would they have enough money in that retirement? People are concerned that their pensions are still getting taxed, that their income will get taxed, their savings will get taxed, and they may not be able to enjoy the quality of life of which they worked so hard to enjoy to this point. So hopefully the new administration, any further administration, will really look at double taxation on the monies that seniors have already earned, that they've put aside to invest to take care of themselves in retirement and or pass on to their heirs, that will then again get subject to additional taxes where our seniors will not be able to live off of what they have put aside and or not have enough in Social Security to maintain their quality of life. The long-term care piece is very important for folks to understand, because are you going to plan for that portion of your retirement to have some sort of funds put aside? Would you want more of your heirs to receive more of your money, and would they be able to have those sort of dollars to provide for your quality of care should that come about? And so we have to be very careful how we tread with regards to our senior citizens. The work that they've put in to build our economy to what it is today needs to be rewarded and not penalized.
Tell us a little bit, before I jump to Nancy, about Maggie's List and how this election went for you.
This election was absolutely fantastic for Maggie's List. The GOP in its previous state did not really put much energy and effort into recruiting and supporting Republican women running for the Congress. And Maggie's List stepped up to the plate in 2009 and put forth a political action committee that really got behind female conservative candidates that wanted to make a difference, that wanted to get into the government arena to truly make a difference and impact positively the lives of all of our citizens. And this year we had a phenomenal year where the majority of our endorsed candidates won election or re-election. And we're just going to pursue that as we move forward in the future elections, because women bring diversity to the table. That not only with our agenda, but with our thoughts and experience. And many of our female candidates that we endorse on the Maggie's List come from a government and a business and a community background that can really bring a level of expertise to the table. And we heard about the mayor in California talking about bringing people together. And women tend to work well that way in bringing about solutions and not just having a title for themselves and stepping on a pedestal, and pumping their chest out because of their title and position. They're about working together, coming across the aisle to make a better governance and a better country so that we can have something to pass on to our children.
Well, I should mention on Thursday, the Hill is going to have a fun new members event. And I just talked to as I mentioned, Stephanie Bice, who's a representative-elect from Oklahoma City, first Iranian-American, member of the GOP, had a pre-call. She's going to be a lot of fun. And she credits part of what Maggie's List did as part of her terrain there. So, Nancy, we have talked many times about this, about what's on the minds of older Americans who basically turned out in numbers that were phenomenally huge. What are they pounding the table for across the aisles? What are they pounding? What do they really want to see solved and done from this town? I mean, Washington can be a major disappointment for folks, but what do they need to happen that they're going to feel like they were heard?
Yeah, and let me extend my birthday greetings to Heather as well. Along with you, thanks to this program, we know one of the bars you used to hang out in.
McGinty's.
So that's very good
McGinty's
news.
is great.
I think the biggest issue for older Americans right now is the biggest issue for them during the campaign season, and that's COVID. And I think that public officials, groups like ours, need to continue to put the focus on what's available to help them in this COVID era and more information and access to vaccines. And I would say that is the single most important issue right now. Related to that is the very serious and depressing problem with nursing homes in America. Over 100,000 of the deaths that have occurred from COVID have occurred in nursing homes. We're working very hard right now with a bipartisan group on Capitol Hill to ensure that there's additional help for nursing homes so we can get the protective gear, data, transparency, visual visitations, everything we think we need to be able to make that situation better. So I would say in the immediate term, it's really mostly about COVID and the vaccine. Moving beyond that, of course, seniors and particularly those over 50 are very concerned about the economy. And that's going to show in two ways that were reflected in why seniors said they voted the way they did in the election. Part of that is, will there be jobs available for them? And I think there's a lot of concern right now about age discrimination. As the economy rebuilds, will we kind of go back to a situation where it was much harder for an older person to get a job? We've been blessed with a tight labor market over the last few years, so we've heard less about that. But in the coming new economy, there are a lot of questions about that. And then for those who are working, the early stimulus package included provisions for paid sick, paid family leave. That's going to continue to be an issue, particularly as a very substantial number of individuals are family caregivers and are caregivers right now. So that's top of mind. But back to what both Jennifer and Heather said, the older voter was the most vociferous on the subject of bipartisanship and working together and coming together. Older voters remember the days where the parties came together on big, complicated problems and put some differences aside in order to enact legislation for the overall good. And those are days they hope are coming back.
I don't know if you heard former Congressman Tom Coleman at the front end of the program, but he suggested this idea of seniors for civic education and creating a group around it to kind of restore that ethic. What do you all think about Tom Coleman's idea? Nancy?
I think anything that can get us to a discussion about civic education and involvement is all to the good. And I think part of what Mayor Warren was talking about is in cities and smaller towns around the country, there really is a lot of that. AARP oversees the age-friendly network of communities and states. We have 500 communities, 6 states that are part of this. And one of the things that the communities sign on to is a real process for discussion across generations about the problems that are being confronted at the local level. And I think it's time well invested.
Heather, Jennifer,
Also,
quick
though I didn't
thoughts?
hear-
Yeah.
Though I didn't hear the proposal that you just described, the idea also of listening to seniors and elevating senior voices, I think also is very important for the country. There's a lot of wisdom and experience, and following the concerns about COVID, about what's happening in nursing homes, where 40% of all the COVID deaths have been in nursing homes. And it's one of the reasons that the Biden administration says that they're particularly going to focus on that and providing the PPEs, the personal protective equipment, the testing, and improved support for the workers, the people working in the nursing homes, as well as in family care. If you want to take good care of seniors, then you need to make sure that if they have caregivers, that their caregivers are well taken care of.
Right.
It's also part of a caring economy, and it's one of the key elements of a Biden administration promise. Also helping seniors to age in place, to stay in our homes, and not be put out, and have the personal support as we age.
Right. Jennifer, your thoughts on a civic education mission or group?
I am all for passing on knowledge to the younger generation. I think we need more of that. My first job actually wasn't a job, it was a volunteer work at a nursing home where my mother worked as a CNA, was volunteering to give back to the seniors that were in a nursing home. And many of them did not get visitation from their families, so the only connection with the outside world were volunteers. I was a candy striper. We don't have candy stripers anymore.
Oh, yeah.
I learned so much from those seniors in the work that they did in the factories during World War I and the other engagements that they had in building this country. And I think a lot of that has been lost, to pass on those generational knowledge to our youngsters so that they can have an appreciation for those that have come before them and a knowledge base as to what came before them so they can improve today and into tomorrow. And I think that breakdown in our society needs to come back. When I was a little girl, it was you respect your seniors, you don't talk back, and you give that deference to your seniors. And what I'm seeing a lot of, unfortunately, in our society is that seniors are being brushed aside as if we don't know anything. And many seniors know a whole lot that these youngsters can listen to and embrace in their daily lives to really make themselves better. Right. And so hopefully, and anyone that's not a senior listening to this program today would reach out to a senior and embrace them as a relationship to build upon their own lives. So I totally embrace going into I do volunteer work as well, and going into our school system and educating the kids about financial literacy. And these things seniors know, particularly those that have come way before me during World War I, well, not World War I, but World War II and beyond, that when we went through the Great Depression and even the family members that were engaged during those periods of times, how did they make things happen? How did they keep the families together? How did they build communities? How did they work together to take that bad situation and make it beneficial for the communities as a whole? And we need more of that. And I think in doing so, we can build our communities to be stronger.
So well, Steve, I want to just one thing. Yeah. Often there's a discussion of it's the seniors or the youth.
Right.
I think that both. A Biden administration is certainly looking for a way not to have an intergenerational conflict, but an intergenerational unity as we move forward, finding commonalities for dealing with the COVID crisis, dealing with healthcare for all of us, and ensuring that there's jobs at good wages with union support for all of us.
Thank you, Heather. We have a question from the audience that I'd like to squeeze in here from Bill Arnone, who's CEO of the National Academy of Social Insurance. So, Bill?
Hi, this is Bill Arnone with the National Academy of Social Insurance. My question is there evidence that in the 2020 election, older voters voted more on their economic self-interest, such as on issues like Social Security and Medicare, or did they vote on other types of issues, cultural, social, and the like?
Nancy, let me pitch that to you to begin with.
Sure. Well, and we're still unpacking some of the data from Election Day, but it's very clear. We did a survey right afterwards, and what we were able to ascertain was that seniors, in particular, all over 50, voted on a set of issues, including COVID, the economy, which translated into jobs and cost of living, and Medicare and Social Security. And it's really a good bet that whenever we're looking at how seniors voted or what they care about, Social Security and Medicare is at the top of that list. And so we won't be surprised at all if when we get all the data, we see that. But based on what we've seen so far and based on what we've seen in virtually every election, it's Social Security and Medicare. I might also add that it's healthcare costs. Increasingly over the last 4, 5, 6 years, we've seen healthcare costs at the top of the list. And that, by the way, speaking of Jennifer and her constituency, I was on a panel with a couple of women representing younger women voters. And they started the program by saying healthcare was one of the most important issues for their group. So talk about generations being able to come together. Right. There are common issues here across generations and across gender.
Can I just get 30 seconds each from Heather and from Jennifer? Jennifer, Heather?
You have a question.
Jennifer, were you going to comment?
The question is, what do you think? Well, I'm going to actually shift the question. Right now, one of the things that's really just unfolded, let's make some news, is the vaccine. The vaccine is now got emergency use authority. Maybe Moderna is going to get one, but the Pfizer drug is out, vaccine. People have talked about elder Americans, frontline workers being on the front line of that. Do you feel like it's really going to happen? And do you feel like, as I have to tell you, more victims in Pearl Harbor every day are dying in this country. The vast majority of them are elder Americans. Not all of them are elder. Just want to be very clear on that. But just a quick snapshot, I mean, all of you are tied to networks. Do you feel like the system is taking seriously those priorities, and do we have confidence we're going to be able to get vaccines out to those communities that are such at high risk? Just 30 seconds, Heather, Jennifer, and Nancy.
By the way, Bill Arnone is one of the great experts on Social Security. And one of the things, just to finish on that question, the Biden administration has promised both to make the funding even more secure rather than threaten it, as we've seen in the recent past, to make it more secure by ensuring that those making over $400,000 a year have to pay their fair share towards Social Security benefits, and but no one under that will have to pay. It will expand Social Security coverage, particularly for the elderly, covering also these medical costs and on the vaccine. And I'm optimistic about it being available when we follow the science, as I think the Biden administration will. And also we need to be sure about negotiating on the costs of prescription medicines that the Biden administration has said they will do, and use the power of government and Medicare, as the VA currently is able to bargain on the cost of prescription drugs.
Thank you, Heather. Jennifer, quick thoughts?
Yes, the embrace candidate, the endorsed candidates at Maggie's list supported in this 2020 election truly support giving the vaccines to our most vulnerable population, and that is our seniors. And in the state of Florida, the governor, Ron DeSantis, have prioritized that those vaccines will go to the nursing homes as well as the frontline providers, so that we can make sure that those people that are giving care and individuals that are most vulnerable will be getting the vaccine. We're already seeing folks have been issued the vaccine, and so far they're saying that they have good results as far as not having complications after the vaccine. So I'm confident that we'll be able to get the vaccines out to the vulnerable population, as well as those that are giving care to them. So those individuals that we support at Maggie's list support our seniors, supports healthcare, support reducing the cost of healthcare, support also increasing security, safety and security for our communities. And I truly believe that this election cycle moving forward, we're going to see relief to those senior citizens.
Thank you, Jennifer. And Nancy, last word.
We're born optimists, and we know how many people have made commitments that the most vulnerable will get the vaccines early on. We're in the process now of going through all the state plans. As you know, we have offices everywhere, and we'll advocate here on behalf of older Americans. And we believe that in a few months, the country will be in a much better place if we all come together, work together, and see good results from the vaccine.
Well, Nancy LeaMond from AARP, Heather Booth, who is the former senior engagement director for the Biden-Harris campaign, and Jennifer Carroll, national spokesman person for the Maggie's List. Thank you all. This is a great conversation. I know we're going to be back talking about this, but thanks for putting it on our dashboard. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You.
Thanks,
My
Steve.
final